Hello everybody, welcome. I am the Caffeinated Critic. Here we talk about new feature releases and new series releases. Here I have a cup of coffee. Believe it or not, this is not a lens. This is indeed a cup of coffee. And I will not stop the review until I have finished this cup of coffee. So without further ado, let's do it. So today I'm reviewing Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which is the sequel to a film that surprised a lot of people with how clever its hide-and-seek concept was and how good the performances were. Is it better than the original? Stay tuned to find out. So let's start with what worked first. The first thing that works for me is Samara Weaving's performance as Grace. She brings a lot of chaos and vulnerability to her performance, and we see her go through a lot of harsh conditions in this film. But another thing that really stands out to me is her relationship with her sister Faith, played by Catherine Newton. Faith brings an unpredictable energy to the film, and she also is getting introduced to the hide-and-seek game of this crime organization in a brand new way. We can tell that the two sisters have a different relationship with this scenario because oftentimes Faith is naive to what is happening around her. And then there's Elijah Wood, which I was surprised about, and he actually does really well here. He brings an innocence to his performance that I found surprising, given that he is in charge of a demon-worshipping organization. There definitely is a David Cronenberg edge to this film that I was not expecting. I do remember a lot of slashing and gore in the original, but not this far. But I think it worked for me for this sequel. There also is a scene that stands out to me, namely the reception scene between Samara Weaving's character and another one of the hunters. And there is some good fight choreography in the scene, including lots of hand-to-hand combat. And then there's the expansion of the lore here, which I was really looking forward to. We did not really get all much of that in the original film. A lot of it was kept a mystery, and I think that kept a lot of people engaged. So I'd say this point is a mixed point. It's not entirely positive, but it also did not hurt the film in any way, in my opinion. We learn more about the organization and the stakes that it could have for our lead characters if they were to get involved. The tone in this film is still intact. It blends a lot of humor with a lot of scarier moments and some blood and gore as well. And another thing that this film was able to keep from the first was some really good badass character moments. We get a lot of scenes of characters just sitting back and smoking cigarettes and just looking pretty cool. Now let's go into what didn't work for me here. I think we're almost halfway through the coffee. The biggest issue for me here is the concept. The first film had a really interesting concept with the hide-and-seek, but this one just isn't really able to replicate it in a new and refreshing way. As a result, I often became kind of bored with the gimmick and with all the characters going through it, honestly. The hunters also did not stand out all that much in this one. They're less likable and sometimes just straight up annoying, particularly a group of twins that interacts in the film. I just wanted both of them to go as soon as possible, but well, they kind of sticked around until pretty far into the film, to be honest. Some things that I wanted more of include the relationship between Grace and Faith and their conversations together, unpacking their past. All that stuff I found very interesting, but it was sort of placed in between several action sequences that, like I said, were repetitive and reminiscent of the first one. Also, there is a major reversal in the middle of the film where a character makes a decision that I wasn't really sure about. It changes the dynamics of the story in some ways that I felt were refreshing, but in other ways I was like, I don't know if they should have went that direction. But the biggest flaw here is the lack of surprise. You really want to be surprised with a sequel like this, and I was really wanting them to try something new, but I feel like this film didn't really reinvent the wheel, and as a result, it falls kind of flat. So let's go back to the question. Is it better than the original? I would say no. But that doesn't mean that this film isn't worth watching. I would say this film has some merits, especially with the blood and gore and with the relationship between the two sisters, even if it feels a little underdeveloped. If you were a fan of the original and you love the tone, the pacing, the characters, and the blood and gore, I think you should go out and watch this. So on the caffeinated scale, I'm going to give this an average cup of joe. And I'll drink to that. And we did it. As proof, it's empty. Hopefully now you're feeling as caffeinated as me now that you've watched this review. Please let me know if there's any films that I should review in the future. In the meantime, I will continue brewing new reviews for you soon. See you next time.